Hi, I'm Margot Van Etten, one of the pastoral assistants at St. Monica's and Emmanuel Church of the Deaf. And I just wanted to share with you some things that I have been thinking about. Particularly, yesterday I had a really long drive, and so I had a lot of opportunity to think. And I also have heard a lot of people just talking about what a challenge this time of year is for them anyway, and particularly this year. It's a challenging time, and there are quite a lot of people who are struggling with the idea of not being able to get together with families and friends on Thanksgiving, which is just a week and a half away. And this morning, as I turned on the computer before we started this, I saw this big news item: doctor suggests canceling Thanksgiving. And so I've been thinking about what a challenge this approaching season is, as the nights get longer, the days get darker and shorter, the weather that gets colder, and then here are these holidays that are going to be very different this year. And as I was thinking about this, the strangest phrase, or the strangest thing happened actually, this phrase kept popping up: rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Rejoice. That's from Paul's letter to the Philippians. And he really bears down on this idea. The word rejoice gets used at least 8 times in the letter. And just to add emphasis, he throws in the word joy 6 more times. Rejoice in the Lord always. Interestingly enough, he wasn't writing this letter from a place that was particularly delightful. He was in prison in Rome, waiting for the inevitable moment when he would be let out and executed. So it seems a little strange, perhaps. One could say that life wasn't exactly going well for Paul. But I'm thinking, as we go through a time when things are not turning out the way we want, this may be the key for us too. And here's the thing: how do we get there? How do we rejoice in the middle of a shutdown, in the middle of the coronavirus and all the other stuff we're going through? Well, I read a post, a quote from a local major meditation master, a monk of Mount Savior, Brother David Steindl-Rast. And he said, the root of joy is gratefulness. It is not joy that makes us grateful. It's gratefulness that brings us joy. Wow. Gratefulness brings us joy. And as I think about it, and I look back on my own experience of this past year, I really believe that's right. Gratefulness brings us joy. Many, many years ago, this would be like when the deaf parish first started, there was a man in the parish named Charles. Charles was both deaf and blind. And you would have thought that he would be living a pretty grim life, pretty constricted. We had a Christmas party, and I watched, and a lot of people kind of tended to avoid Charles, I think because few things are more threatening to a deaf person than the sight of somebody who's blind as well. But there were some people who went over and talked with him. And finally, I went over too, and Charles was just sitting there, beaming. He had the biggest smile you can imagine. So I sat down and said, "Hi, Charles, how are you doing?" And he said, "I am so happy. I just love this time of year." And I said, "Well, what brings you so much pleasure in this?" And he said, "The way people love each other, the way we're all together." And he went on with a list of all the things he found so beautiful about Christmas time that had nothing to do with most of the stuff that helps us feel like we're in the Christmas spirit. Charles was grateful for the things in his life, the friends who helped him get places, the neighbors in his little apartment, the things that gave him joy were things that most of us would overlook. And they were certainly not the things that we are missing right now. Fancy food, a big feast, a lot of people around, talking and laughing, Christmas light. Charles had found the secret of joy. And so I'm thinking, as we approach Thanksgiving and start to move into Advent, maybe it would be a good thing for us to practice gratefulness as a conscious spiritual practice. To sit down and, as we think about the people we may not be able to see at Thanksgiving, for example, or at Christmas, take a moment and maybe even just sit in the dark of this long evening that we now have every night, and maybe light a candle, and then imagine the faces of the people we love that we aren't going to be with. And then sit and really imagine all the things we've enjoyed being with them, the moments that make up that tapestry of memories that lights up our people. And as we remember those, we can give thanks for each one consciously. So I can look back and remember the laughter I had with so many of the group of friends my husband and I shared. I can remember funny moments. I can remember Larry's feet sticking out from under the Christmas tree of a friend of ours who always had to have somebody else help put up her tree. And she usually had an enormous one. And he got to be the guy that adjusted the tree in the stand. And that is a lovely memory that I can treasure and give thanks for, even though we're never going to be together again on this earth in this life. And those memories bring joy. So as I think of my friends and my family that I won't see, I remember the moments of joy they gave me or we shared. The nephew who came down here one summer, pretending he was taking a vacation, but he really came to put in railings and floor and support for Larry. And as I think about that, I feel gratitude for this young man. And I can also offer up a prayer asking for his blessing and well-being during this time. I think if we really make a practice of it, we can find gratitude in the littlest things. Okay, right now it's snowing outside. I'm really not ready for it to be snowing, but I can watch the flakes meandering down. And as I look out on the porch roof outside this window, I can watch them melt. And I can see some beauty in that. So how can we nurture gratitude? We can make it a constant practice every day. And by doing so, we can reframe this time as a time of opportunity for spiritual growth. We can be together with those we love in a deep way, even if we aren't physically together. And as we nurture that sense of gratitude, we're going to discover the secret of joy. And so my hope and prayer for us today is that we all will find this gratitude at this time in Thanksgiving, and that we will have a blessed Thanksgiving, Advent, and New Year.